The following is a fan-based blog. StarCraft and StarCraft 2 belongs to Blizzard Entertainment. StarCraft Evolution was written by Timothy Zahn, and the music from StarCraft and StarCraft 2 was written by Glenn Stanford, Neal, Acree, Derek Duke, and Russel. Please support the official release. For years, fans on the internet have either debated or made calculations of what characters are capable of, from websites from Reddit to Quora, from YouTube channels from Death Battle to Seth the Programmer. Some are close while others not so much. In this series, I, with the help of others, are attempting to answer these questions once and for all. Hey guys, I'm Michael Leland.
I'm Connor Craig.
And we're your hosts of Character Analysis.
Let's do this.
In the year 2259, humans have arrived in the Kepler sector and began to colonize there. But then, 3 centuries later, they discovered they are not alone.
2 alien species have appeared, resulting in a 3-way war like no one has ever seen. These 2 species are the Protoss and their arch-nemesis, the Zerg. No, not the evil Emperor Zerg, in case you're thinking of it.
Long ago, life was seeded in the universe by the Xel'Naga, though the StarCraft universe, not our universe.
And this wasn't the first time they did it. The older generations have done it in other universes, since they were first formed in some place called the Void.
And when their race is about to end, they would choose 2 species. One gifted with the purity of form, and one with purity of essence. And when these 2 species combined, they would be chosen to be the next generation of Xel'Naga, and they might go on to seed other universes with life. This process was called the Infinite Cycle.
Unfortunately, one Xel'Naga called Amon was pretty disgusted by the concept of the Infinite Cycle. So he planned on breaking the cycle once and for all by, well, basically killing everything in the universe and remolding it into his image.
But before he could do so, he plans on creating an army of Xel'Naga-like hybrids. But to do this, Amon needs one species that has purity of form, and another with purity of essence.
Normally the Xel'Naga doesn't interfere with the universe's development, but Amon is willing to intervene in the evolution of the universe in order to complete his plan.
He first found and altered the Protoss on Aiur, gifting them with the purity of form. But that didn't go so well. Then they found and altered the Zerg on Xeris.
Back then, the Zerg were more of a larva-like race, but after some alterations, they began to infest and assimilate other living things, transforming them into deadly creatures. Amon and his followers even created a hive mind in order to keep them under control, the Overmind.
But then one day the rest of the Xel'Naga caught wind of Amon's plans, and the 2 fractions went into war with each other. But then Amon ordered the Zerg to attack them, and they suffered heavy losses, but they managed to defeat Amon, causing him to go into the Void but plots to return.
After assimilating the Xel'Naga, the Overmind became aware of the Protoss and has since then been looking for their homeworld of Aiur in order to finish what his creators had started.
Eventually the Overmind founded Aiur and attacked it with all the Swarm's might. But then the Overmind got killed by a Protoss named Tassadar, who gave his life to destroy him, and the Zerg became fractured.
Good golly, who comes up with these names? Eventually, the Zerg were controlled by a Zerg human mutant named Kerrigan, and years later, she gave control of the swarm to a broodmother named Zagara.
Even before they were altered, the Zerg have the ability to adapt and evolve simply by collecting essences from other creatures. They can even adapt in the most extreme environments and can adapt and evolve during a battle.
They also have a high reproduction rate. high resistance to toxins and chemical agents, possessing natural weapons and defenses that are comparable to modern technology, and can fully regenerate themselves given a bit of time.
Most of them can burrow underground and can communicate through psychic links. Also, they can't die of old age.
Wait, what?
The more advanced adaptations and evolutions wouldn't be possible without their evolution master, Abathur. Abathur was created by the Overmind to act as both the genetic engineer and DNA library of the Zerg.
After simulating many alien species, the Zerg can create many different types of creatures and structures. During the events of StarCraft 2, some of the units have been upgraded into different variant strains to improve them, giving them some additional abilities.
Answer complex. Can branch evolution of fully evolved Zergling. Form 2 new strains.
For each brood, they can only use one strain variant per unit.
The first Zerg breed are larvae. They were altered from the original Zerg to be bigger and tougher. They contain the genetic makeup of every other Zerg breed, which they can morph into, but it mostly requires certain structures.
Drones are like the worker ants of the hive, gathering resources and morphing into various structures.
All structures are made on a special substance called creep, except Zerg hatcheries, extractors, and nidus worms. The creeps give Zerg structures and units their nourishments and can increase all ground unit movements.
Zerg hatcheries spawn larvae and evolves into Zerg layers, which can evolve into Zerg hives, and therefore allows larvae to turn into certain Zerg units and overlords to morph into overseers.
Extractors extract Vespane gas from Vespane geysers. Spawning pools allow larvae to morph into Zerglings and queens, and allows drones to morph into spine crawlers and spore crawlers. They also allow drones to morph into bile launchers, roach warrens, and baneling nests, and allow Zerg hatcheries to morph into Zerg layers.
Evolution chambers increases ground forces offensive and defenses through upgrades, and allows larvae to morph into apparitions. Hydraulis dens allows larvae to morph into hydraulis.
They can upgrade the hydraulis range of attack and can morph into either impaler dens or lurker dens, which allows hydraulis to morph into either impalers or lurkers, depending on the strain.
Creep tumors creates and spreads creep and can create more creep tumors. Baneling nests allows Zerglings to morph into banelings, and roach warrens allows larvae to morph into roaches.
Spine crawlers attack ground units and spore crawlers attack air units. Either way, they can both uproot and root themselves to move around and relocate to different spots if need be.
Bile launchers are slow attacking but deals heavy splash damage to targets in an area.
Spires allows larvae to morph into mutalisks. They can upgrade air units, attacks, and defenses, and can morph into greater spires, allowing mutalisks to morph into either devourers, brood lords, or vipers.
Nidus networks produces nidus worms, which can appear just about anywhere on the ground and can transport ground units.
Infestation pits allows larvae to morph into infestors and swarm hosts, and Zerg layers to morph into Zerg hives. And Ultralisk caverns allows larvae to morph into Ultralisks. Anyway, that's just about it for all the Zerg structures. Back to the units.
Overlords provide control over the swarm. They can also transport ground units and creates and spreads creep. They used to detect invisible and borrowed units, but now they can only do so when they morph into overseers.
Like overlords, they provide control, but lose the ability to transport ground units and excrete creep. They can detect invisible and burrowed units, and oversight mode gives it a 50% increased sight radius, but is immobile in this state.
Zerglings are light assault warriors that work best in large numbers.
They're basically the most numerous units in the Zerg Swarm. Their variant strains include the Raptor strain, which can jump up and down cliffs, over obstacles, and targets from a distance, and they're 40% stronger than their original counterparts, and the Swarmling strain, which can spawn in groups of 3 instead of 2, almost instantly,
to quickly build forces and overwhelm enemies.
They're everywhere! Then shoot everywhere!
Zerglings can morph into banelings, which can acidically explode on contact with targets. Their strains include Splitter Strain, which can split into two smaller, less powerful versions of themselves upon death, though each one can only do it once. And the Hunter Strain, which can jump up and down cliffs, over obstacles, and onto targets from a long range.
Hydralisks are medium assault warriors that can shoot both ground and air targets with spine needles and morph into either impalers or lurkers, depending on the variant. They can only attack underground. The only difference is that impalers can only attack one ground unit at a time, but they're effective against armored ground units. And lurkers can attack multiple ground units and are mostly effective against light ground units.
Roaches are medium-range creatures which can spit acidic saliva from a distance and can quickly heal itself when burrowed underground.
Their variant strains include the Corpser strain, which can infect enemy hosts with a parasite by damaging them. When killed quickly, the victim's corpse spawns 2 roachlings, kind of like the chestbuster from Alien. And the Vile strain's attack slows down enemy movements and attacks to 20% to 75%.
Roaches can also morph into Ravagers.
They have a special attack which shoots blobs of bile to a targeted area, dealing area of effect damage.
Queens are the hiveborn of the swarm. They used to fly, but have been re-engineered to be more terrestrial to better improve their ability to take care of the hive.
They can attack air units with acid spines and ground units with claws. They can also create creep tumors, helping Zerg hatcheries, layers, and hives spawn larvae more quickly and heal other units and structures.
Swarm hosts spawn locusts when burrowed or rooted in the ground.
Variant strains include carrion strains, which creates flying locusts that can attack ground targets. The flying locusts in the strain have 25% less health, but are faster and deal 50% more damage. And creep strains generate creep while rooted or buried and can quickly tunnel to any location with creep. However, there is a catch. They can only do it once every 10 seconds after each time of use.
Mutalisks are medium attack flyers in which their glaive worm attacks bounces off of and hits multiple targets both in the air and on the ground.
Depending on the strain, they can either morph into broodlords, which can spawn and attack ground targets with broodlings, or vipers, which can pull targets towards itself and stun enemies by doing so. They can also slow enemy ground forces and prevent them from attacking and drains life from allies to restore their energy.
Mutalisks can also morph into Devourers, which can shoot acid.
This acid can reduce any target's armor and attack speed, and can reveal them even when invisible.
They have been later modified to carry and launch objects as well.
Infestors can infect and control enemy targets with parasites, slow enemy movements by 75%, and can create virophages, which can create its own creep and spew parasitic biotoxins, which includes the hyper-evolutionary virus, infesting Tyran buildings and any living things around it.
This virus causes any living thing that gets infested to turn into a Zerg-infested creature. Somehow, the Zerg can even infest and commandeer Terran structures, and with people in them, vehicles which they can use to spawn infested Terran units, at least with the structures.
Infected Terrans used to be like walking bombs, but now they're mostly zombie-like meatballs.
Over time, Terrans who have been infected can turn into apparitions as a result of extreme mutation from the virus.
That's how they used to make them, but these days larvae can simply morph into these creatures.
Ultralisks are basically the tanks of the swarm. They're the most durable and powerful terrestrial Zerg breed.
Nexus strain Ultralisks emit a toxic cloud, damaging any nearby enemy ground units, and can create a toxic blast that damages enemy ground units and structures around them. And Turok strain Ultralisks can enter a chrysalis when they're killed, and are reborn after a while. But if they're killed before they hatch, or within 1 minute after they're reborn, then they're dead for good.
And then there's the brood mothers, the brood leaders of the swarm. They were created by Kerrigan to replace Cerebrets and, in case she herself dies, lead and safeguard the swarm.
What's a Cerebrit?
They look like this.
That is so gross on so many levels. Anyway, some of them were either former queens or simply born from a special larva, like Cerebrets. Each one of them maintains control over a brood, but the overqueen, Zagara, oversees the entire swarm.
They can heal nearby Zerg units, infest living hosts with a parasite that either kills or controls its victim, fly, collect biomass to grow bigger and stronger, at least when not fully grown.
And they can even lay eggs that hatches into Zerg units, including Zerglings, Hydralisks, Roaches, and Drones.
It was not shown in gameplay, but it has been hinted that they can.
The Zerg has infested over 100 worlds, assimilated dozens of alien species, fought and defeated both the Terrans and the Protoss on numerous occasions, and can even regenerate over time to full health, even at the point of death.
Their bone armor can take half a dozen gaze rifle rounds before breaking, and the gaze rifles that the Terran Marines use, the C-14, are powerful enough to pierce up to 2 inches of steel. Their natural weaponry is capable of piercing through armor. They can survive and fly in space, and Ultralisk can take a nuclear explosion.
They even aided Kerrigan, who became a Zelnaga herself, in defeating Amon himself once and for all.
But despite all this, they're not without their faults. In fact, they have their fair share of losses to either Terran and Protoss.
Some units are completely vulnerable to anti-air or anti-ground enemies if they can't either attack ground or air-based targets.
For most of them, the regeneration takes time. Certain units require certain structures to make.
And since Zerg hatcheries, layers, and hives spawn larvae, which morphs into other Zerg breeds, it can disrupt unit production.
They need to eat and rest every so often, though they don't sleep for extended periods, and no set periods of inactivity.
And although they have high resistance to chemical agents and stuff, they are susceptible to concentrated radiation due to their biological nature.
Each brood leader needs to create more overlords to maintain control over their broods, and therefore increase the size of their broods, though each brood has a limit to how many overlords they can make, and therefore how many units they can control and create.
Speaking of control, if anything disrupts this psionic link with the hive mind or brood leader, like through, some sort of mind control, or say their leader died, the Zerg will be reduced to nothing more than feral animals.
The strength of each individual Zerg is tricky to judge, but they fought amongst themselves in the past. Their bone armor can withstand up to half a dozen gaze rifle rounds before breaking, and those bullets can pierce up to 2 inches of steel.
Most steel can withstand up to 25,000 psi. This means that their armor can stand up to 150,000 pounds of force, assuming that each bullet would be about half an inch in diameter.
Ultralisk can survive getting hit by a nuclear missile.
During StarCraft Evolution, they used a missile which was stated to be a 10 kiloton missile. The book may have stated that these were the kind of missiles that Terrans used on the battlefield as well. By comparing the missile's hit points from StarCraft 1 with the Ultralisk's health and defense points, we could determine that they could survive up to less than 8.08 kilotons of TNT, or 8,080 tons of TNT.
We can determine the speed of the Zerg by comparing them to vultures. These hoverbites can move up to 230 miles per hour, or, here, of course Canadian, 375 kilometers an hour. By using gameplay speed and comparing vultures with Zerglings, they can reach speeds between 256.82 kilometers an hour to 410.92 kilometers an hour.
By comparing them to Zerglings, Mutalisks can go up to 326.47 kilometers an hour.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like it, and share it with your friends.
And hey, if you guys have any suggestions for us in the future, let us know in the comments down below.
Thanks for watching.
Unfortunately, one Xel'Naga called Amon was pretty Okay. Unfortunately, one Xel'Naga called Amon was Amon. Normally the Xel'Naga doesn't interfere. Fear.
Even before they were altered, the Zerg have the ability to adapt and evolve simply by collecting essence.
High resistance to toxins and chemical agents, possesses natural weapons and defenses that are comparable.
Their variant strains include the Corpser Strange, Doctor Strange, where did that come from? I don't even know. Corpser Strange. All right.